All right. This is Gabe Ets-Hokin of CityBike magazine and MotorcycleDaily.com. I ride motorcycles, so you don't have to. And I'm here in Westwood, near Los Angeles, California. And I just rode about 100 miles on Ducati's Diavel power cruiser, I guess you'd call it. Now, you've probably already heard about this motorcycle. It's really caused a lot of fuss and stir. It's the first cruiser that Ducati has built in a generation since the Indiana. I'm sure you don't remember that, and it's probably a good thing. So what is the Diavel? Well, it's an all-new design. Well, the chassis is certainly all new. Ducati's designers started with a clean sheet of paper, and they wanted to really meld together their sport bikes, the monster line of standard motorcycles, as well as a cruiser look. You know, and they talk about cruisers as having a downward shape to them, starting from the front going downward. So they have this kind of very heavy shape in the front, and then it tapers to the rear, and you have an extended wheelbase. That makes it a cruiser. You have a very wide rear tire. This is a Diablo Rosso 2, but it is specially designed just for this model. It's a 240 45 17, and you will not find this size from any other manufacturer. It's unique to this motorcycle. Also unique are these beautiful forged and machined aluminum wheels. And lots of features, but the heart of this bike is this motor, and this is called the Testastretta 11 degree motor, and it is rated at 162 horsepower, probably at the crank, and it is a phenomenal cruiser engine because it makes power everywhere, all the way up to about 10,000 RPM. It just makes tons and tons of power. Every cliche you want to throw at it, pulling the stumps or stretching your arms or whatever. But seriously, 10 years ago, only a World Superbike would make this kind of power. And now anyone can just go into the Ducati dealership and plunk down about 17 grand and buy this motorcycle. Or buy the 1198, which has even more power, but in a way, the power is more usable on this motorcycle. Now let's talk about some more features. It's a very, very high-tech bike. The whole thing's operated by a key fob that you have to keep on your person, and then it has a switchblade key for the gas tank and the seat. But as long as this is within 6 feet of the ignition, the motorcycle will start up. You push this button to start it, and they say 6 feet, but sometimes you got to hold it right here, and then it fires up. It has a TFT display, which is similar to the displays on smartphones. So it's color, it's very high resolution, very pretty graphics. It has multiple screens, multiple functions. You can adjust a huge array of things with it. And then, of course, you have your regular instrument panel here with the tachometer and all your idiot lights. You have this cool trigger style ignition switch with hidden start button, and you can see the design themes, the different shapes that have been carried out all through the bike. Now this is the Diavel Black, so it gets a black finish on these air scoops. It also gets carbon fiber bodywork. It also gets this forged wheel that's about 5 pounds lighter than the rear wheel on the other bike. But it's the same motor and electronics package, which means you get analog brakes, as well as Ducati's digital traction control, which has 8 settings, and it can all be customized to 3 different engine modes: sport, touring, and urban, which adjusts power delivery or limits power delivery in the case of the urban. So, lots to talk about with this bike. It's all finished up with a 50 millimeter Marzocchi fork, completely adjustable, and an adjustable Marzocchi shock absorber that works through a linkage It's somewhere in there. It's kind of a horizontal lay-down design, but there's a remote preload adjuster on the other side, and it's three-way adjustable. Okay, so let's talk about riding impressions. So the first thing you notice with this motorcycle is that it has great power delivery right off the bottom end. So you open up that throttle and you've got what seems like a limitless supply of power, especially if you're in the sport or the touring mode, which gives you the full 162 horsepower. The urban mode limits you to 100, but you're still getting the benefit of a huge amount of torque. I think 50 or 60 foot-pounds under 3,000 RPM. So it doesn't feel slow, even in urban mode. The urban mode also ramps up the traction control and smooths out power delivery. The sport and touring modes, give you a sharper power delivery and access to all the power. So when the engine's revving over 6,000 RPM, the engine really wakes up and the bike just rockets forward. So it's got plenty of power, but how does the chassis do? Because this is a cruiser after all, so does it get all bent out of shape, and does it wobble and wiggle and wallow and do all that crappy stuff that cruisers do and make you not want to ride cruisers? No, it doesn't. This frame is, I can't say it's as good as the Superbikes because we didn't really ride it that hard, but it's certainly good enough to stand up to this motor. The bike felt very, very stable at high speeds, and it was really a tremendous amount of fun to ride on those twisty roads. We rode up in Malibu and the canyons there. The roads were covered with gravel and stuff from recent rains, but with the traction control turned on, it didn't really I felt very confident in this bike. This rear tire makes the bike feel heavy to steer, but it also makes the bike feel very stable, and I like the way it kind of rolls into turns in a very kind of old-fashioned, but it's also very cruisery kind of way. Look, here's one of my favorite little touches. Very beautiful, folding foot peg, and then there's also, I don't know how to do it, but this also folds out the grab handle for the passengers. So also you've got the top of the line full race monoblock Brembo calipers, and this bike comes standard with anti-lock brakes, very unobtrusive anti-lock brakes. You really don't even know that they're there. So that's just insurance for you. Look how they do this nice machining work on the brake disc carrier. So very pretty. Lots of nice little touches, and it's a kind of bike that you really like to look at. Now, you might not like the styling. I think it's okay for what it is, but what's really cool is when you sit on this motorcycle, the whole thing just kind of disappears, and this is basically your view of the road. So you don't see anything, and then you have to really look down to see the display, which is kind of a drag. Unless you're wearing an open face helmet, which I don't recommend ever wearing a full face helmet. But you look down, and you have to look down to see the multifunction display down here, to see the gear position indicator. Strange thing, there's no fuel. There's no fuel gauge, but there is a fuel warning light. Fully adjustable suspension. So I don't know. I guess I've been at it for almost 9 minutes, so I better just wrap it up. This bike is a cruiser in that it's a little bit more about looks and style than it is about ultimate performance. But as far as street bikes go, this thing handles like a lighter bike, and it's 200 pounds lighter than your average power cruiser, quote unquote. It handles like a sport bike. It handles the way I wish all monsters ever handled. It's kind of weird looking, but that's something to make your own decision. I think this is the kind of bike for a Ducati owner or a sport bike owner who wants pure sport bike performance and handling and weight, but doesn't want to give up, but wants something more comfortable. Doesn't want to ride hunched over on the street anymore, but wants a big handlebar for the leverage and have something that's relaxing and comfortable to ride, but he can still carve up his favorite road just as fast as he did on his sport bike. This is the bike to do that with, It's really fun. It's really cool to ride. The styling is certainly controversial. It's got some other little flaws, like too much heat coming up from under the engine if you're riding it slow. But this isn't the bike to ride slow. It's a really fun bike. Luckily, Ducati dealers offer test rides. I would just tell you to go and test ride one of these things. And if you have an extra 17 grand, kiss it goodbye.